listener production.
Hey, Bension Siebert here with you. Welcome to The Briefing. Overnight, comedian and broadcaster Marty Sheargold parted ways with Triple M after comments he made on his national drive show about the Matildas. He also joked that endometriosis, a debilitating health condition affecting women and people with uteruses, was not real.
Endometriosis, and this is controversial. No, I'm going to say it. It's controversial. Yeah. It's made up.
In a statement, Triple M and Sheargold said the decision to part ways was mutual and would take effect immediately. This whole incident has kicked off a huge national conversation about how men talk about women and about a condition that sends some 40,000 sufferers to hospital in Australia every year. Monica Forlano and Ellie Angel-Mobbs know the pain of this condition all too well. Monica is the chair of Endometriosis Australia and Ellie is one of their ambassadors and podcast hosts. Chris Spyrou sat down with both to get their take.
Monica, we'll start with you. What is the impact of Marty Sheargold's comments on someone in Australia who has endometriosis right now?
Comments like that perpetuate this myth that women are weak, that we complain about things. And as someone who grew up with endometriosis, and I suffered a lot, I just thought I was being weak. And now we know so much more. And we know that it is actually a disease that is crippling for some. It can result in mental anguish. And this is just adding to it. This is another form of gaslighting from a privileged position, and it doesn't help the conversation and it doesn't help close to 1 million Australians living with this. It doesn't help at all.
Is there an economic cost that we can measure the impact of endometriosis on this country?
Most endo patients spend about 30 grand a year on their condition. And this is a condition that you'll have probably from your first period past menopause. So that's a lot. The impact really comes down to presenteeism and absenteeism. So that person who can't make it to work because they literally can't get out of bed, the person who is in so much pain, the drugs that you can get over the counter don't touch the sides. And so they're at work because they've run out of sick leave, but they're just not actually being productive. Study that we did during COVID, and everyone was in lockdown, we found that actually being at home, working from home, made their lives so much easier. And that meant that they were much more productive because they didn't have to have that journey into work in pain. They could actually manage their condition, potentially from their bed, and they could work around flare-ups.
As you mentioned, you're someone who grew up with this condition. Are Marty Sheargold's comments reflective of a current public perception?
I think, fortunately, we have young people coming through who know about this, and actually there's a lot of great male allies that are supporting people with endometriosis. And maybe it's a thought of some people in that particular generation. I would say that more needs to be done because a lot of people will dismiss it, that it's just weak women who can't handle a bit of pain. I would love to get one of those pain machines on any of those blokes and actually set that up to 10 and compare it to a woman who's got endo and see how much pain they can tolerate. I think they're speaking from ignorance and they're looking for cheap laughs by denigrating women. So it's not funny.
What would you like those listening who might not know anything about endo or might not understand its impact to take away from this moment?
I think first, get educated. We have a great website with lots of information at endoaustralia.org. And we're asking for the month of March, actually, which is Awareness Month, from the 1st of March. I'm hoping that in March, people will take the pledge and speak to 3 people. And the more people that talk about endometriosis, we can treat it for what it is, a disease that affects more people than diabetes in this country. And the work that Endometriosis Australia does is super important, and any donations in the month of March goes towards our awareness programs. We're a very small organisation, but we do a lot of good work. So Go to the website, find out more, make that pledge, talk to people, and you might be surprised how many people actually have endo that you know really well, because it'll be 1 in 7 women.
Monica Forlano, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate the time.
Endometriosis affects people all over the country and world. One of those is Ellie Angel-Mobbs, an Endometriosis Australia ambassador and podcast host who also works with us here at SCA. She has a message for Marty Sheargold, but first, what was her reaction to his comments?
My heart sank. I felt sick. It was really, really horrific to hear those comments coming from someone, and to hear it on a station which I know has been advocating for endometriosis and creating awareness by being a voice for Endometriosis Australia, and that really, it broke my heart. I was in tears. I ran to my husband and I was inconsolable. I barely even slept, because for me it really has brought up a lot of stress, and I'm hearing from other endo warriors who feel the same. But also, I'm getting flashbacks to those times when I went to see GPs and doctors and I was dismissed, and it almost felt like as if it was a made-up illness. And, when you go through that for 12 years and then you finally discover that you do have a condition which controls your life, endometriosis, it's definitely not made up. And I know that SCA does not stand by what the comments of this person were, it's not the case at all.
You've mentioned there a little bit about medical gaslighting, and this is something and hurdles that you've faced in the medical space with doctors. Is this something that you've ever faced with everyday Australians or everyday people? People not believing that endometriosis exists and that you have it?
It's a really interesting one dealing with endometriosis, and it is an invisible illness. So I may look perfectly healthy to you, but on the inside, that is not the case. The endo, I've got stage 4, and it causes debilitating pain where it's not just during that time of the month. It could pop up at any time. In fact, I had it last night due to the stress of managing all of this, and that's just what I do deal with. And I think that that's the really frustrating thing, is that it is invisible and people don't know what's going on the inside. And, you'll be judged by friends, or if they don't know what the case is, like I'd be calling in sick for social events at last minute. And when I first was going through it, I'd be calling in sick to work. I'd make up the excuses around gastro and things like that. And there just wasn't the understanding that there now is, especially with male managers. When I first went through it, and it really did feel like I was getting dismissed, and like I've got chronic anxiety from calling in sick to work just because of the way that I was treated in the past. And that definitely has changed. And I've got such a supportive team around me now. But there definitely is that term gaslighting, and I hate even using it, but it really is so true when you are managing a condition like endometriosis. I've been in doctors' surgeries, and it's, I think it's all in your head. And I actually got sent to a psychiatrist to go and get a mental assessment because they didn't believe what was going on, that my pain was real. And it's like you walk away from that feeling like absolute crap. And then you do question yourself. And then you sit in silence not wanting to go and fight. And you'll just be there in pain until you go and try do it all again.
What is it like living with stage 4 endometriosis?
I liken it to being on a roller coaster, and a really, really fast, and one that has its big ups and its really big downs. And you never know what's actually around the corner. So I have great days, I have great weeks. I go through months where there's not really anything going on, and then I'll go through weeks where there's just consistent pain. And I'm at a stage now where I'm able to kind of control things, but it really is that roller coaster. And not only is it physical, but it's emotional and it's draining, and it really does take it out of you. And I'm just so lucky to have such a supportive workplace, but also a supportive family, and my husband too, who is like my rock, and he's able to really understand and do whatever I need at that time when I need it the most. And there's also that feeling of being alone, because it is such a, talking about periods, especially when I first spoke about having endometriosis, it almost felt like this taboo topic, and how dare you, that's disgusting, and you do suffer in silence. And that's kind of why I'm so vocal and shared my story, because I don't want other people, especially young Australians who are going through the start of this, to feel like they need to keep it to themselves, because that's not the case.
Something that surprised me is that there has been this swift reaction and backlash online. And as much as there are people coming out and challenging and criticising Marty for these comments, there's also a lot of people who are on the other side of the fence who are saying, you know, this is comedy and comedy knows no bounds, and what he was doing there is satire and people shouldn't be getting offended by these things. What's your response to those comments?
Yeah, satire is such a personal thing, isn't it? And, you know, I often do joke around my endo. I would never joke that it's made up. I would never say anything like that at all. And I think unless you live with the condition that you shouldn't really be joking about something like that at all. I'm trying to look at it in a positive way, I guess, that we are now having a really important conversation, especially to males, about endometriosis and the seriousness of this condition, and it's something that should not be joked about. And we need to really be supporting those who are going through it and not taking the piss out of them.
You're a fierce advocate in this space, and obviously this is something that affects your life day to day, so you have every reason to be totally involved and immersed in this. Are you seeing potentially some commentary coming out in support of his comments, essentially people saying, yeah, no, endo doesn't exist, it's not a big issue? Are you seeing his words having any impact?
No, and that's probably because of the people that I do have throughout my feed and who support around me, because they know that not is the case. And Marty Sheargold, if you happen to watch this, I'm more than happy to show you my surgery scans, show you the scars on my bellies. I'll walk you through everything and every surgical procedure that I've gone through. I'll tell you the life and death situation I was in ICU when there was endo complications. I will walk you through all of the shit times where I had to go and inject myself with IVF drugs to try and fall pregnant, and then later to be told that I was unable to have a baby because of this condition. But, you know, it is made up, right? It's all BS. Anyone who thinks that it's not real, you need to have a serious, hard look at yourself and just reassess where you are and have a chat. Like, reach out to me. I will more than happily tell you the daily struggles that I go through. And I'm sure that any other endo warrior in this country, in the world, will tell you the exact same thing. And I know that we are fierce advocates, the endo warriors, and we're kind of like an army, and we're all banding together to ensure that there is the positive outcome from this. And we're not going to dwell around the totally untrue comments that endometriosis is made up.
Ellie Angel-Mobbs, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add in, if there is anyone who believes that they may have endometriosis, they have been dismissed in the past through the medical system, then they need to really fight to get those answers. You are, you know, the CEO of your own body, and living daily in pain, debilitating pain that does put your life on hold, that's not normal, and you need to keep fighting until you get the answers that you deserve.
That was Ellie Angel-Mobbs speaking with me there, and before her, Monica Forlano, Chair of Endometriosis Australia. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Briefing. That is it for now. Before you go, though, we'd love it if you could share this episode with someone who you think might enjoy it and would be eager to hear it. It's a really easy way you can support us and all that we do here at The Briefing. So we're sharing our social posts. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom. And don't forget, we'll be back in your feed with a brand new episode tomorrow morning for Headlines with Sash. I'm Chris Spyrou. Catch you next time.
Listener.